Hello everyone, this is Cookies, and today I wanted to do a bit of an abridged national overview for Asphodel. I've got another one that I'm going to be releasing. It's really long and really rambly, so I wanted to do something a lot faster today. So I'm going to try and hit just the most important points, cover the most important units, and generally try to just be a lot faster with everything and give just the most practical advice rather than maybe like all the advice or talk about all the things. Give me 1 second. Let me pull up the Better National Overviews mod too. Okay, so I'm going to be playing Asphodel. All right, I've got the mod flipped on now. And importantly for this game, this overview is going to be somewhat in the context of a mod that iFlight made. And in this mod, he's done a fair number of changes. Really nicely, he's added those changes to the description. But generally speaking, it's a lot of buffs. Starting Magic Pass for Pretenders got buffed. The mobiles get a free gem gen site, I guess, in the capital. They get their Nep Smith removed and they get recuperation. For, I guess, like different Titans, you get buffed paths, which can be really good for helping them thug, and for picking up maybe cheaper incarnates. Because it's that when you start at a higher base, the paths at the top end get like increasing to that gets a little bit cheaper, and they get stuff like temporary gems and battle stuff like that. But that's not why we're here. We're here to talk about Asphodel. But that kind of explains maybe like how I afford my bless that you end up seeing in the game, just in case you have any questions. All right. So when it comes to Asphodel, Asphodel is a nation that starts off as, kind of like Pangea. You've got Centaur units. They've recently added this Black Minotaur, if you want to make these. And you've got a somewhat similar list of commanders. You've got Harpies and whatnot. But you've also got Pop Kill, and you get a bunch of free spawn. And the Pop Kill changes the way you play the nation. Now, I'm going to end up playing this a reasonably high Dominion. I think Lucid did a really good job covering maybe low Dominion builds in his Dom 5 overview, so I'm not going to cover low Dominion. But in the context of high Dominion, where you do go ahead and do all that Pop Kill, you're probably not going to be getting pretty much any of these troops. In your first war, you might have enough money and maybe even parts of expansion to get like the odd Centaur warrior or the odd Minotaur warrior, depending on what you're trying to kill. You might pick up Harpies in a first or second war, I'd say. And it's because they're stealthy. You might be able to use them for raiders, jumping on gem baiting mages or Winds of Death casters, stuff like that. So there's a place for Harpies, place for maybe a few Centaur warriors to pad out Black Centaur ranks. Generally speaking, my personal opinion is that Black Centaurs are better than Black Minotaurs. And that's because Black Centaurs provide a new capability to the nation, which is stealthy raiding. And they're very efficient killers. Whereas Black Minotaurs perform the same role, and I think worse than, Carrion Furies. So, and you free spawn these, you're never going to feel like you probably have enough of them. But these are really good sacreds, and you probably, as a result, they kind of fill that heavy hitting anti-elite role. So maybe you don't need Black Minotaurs. I guess in a pinch you can get these, but generally, I like the stealthy raiding, elfing potential of Black Centaur more. And they've also got Berserker, so just like the Black Minotaur. All right, so that's the living units. In terms of the commanders, you've got the Harpy. This is your scout, your gem mule, and can lead raids of flyers. So if you end up breaking into Draconians or Wyverns or any other sort of flyer, your Black Harpy can lead 10 of these. So they can, they've got really good map moves, so they can fly around the strategic map. You slap a few eagles on a Black Harpy, and you can really get moving because Black Eagles also have really high map move. So Black Harpies are good. I'll be honest, I don't think I've ever recruited a Satyr commander. I suppose they could lead stealthy contingents of this stuff in a low dom build. Otherwise, I don't know why you'd ever get them. Minotaur Lord, same thing, except they're not stealthy. So I guess if you want to get some boutique thug, you can do that. But I think you've got better thug chassis. But I guess if you're short on cheap army thugs, you can go for these. But after a while, 95 gold does start feeling like a lot to Asphodel. These are your Black Centaur raid leaders. They come with death, which means they can lead mannequins if you want them to, or nature, which means they can maybe have bodyguards for themselves, but otherwise they're not going to be bringing a lot of mannequins. I like putting the nature ones in armies because they can point buff their own poison protection if you're doing foul vapors. I like using the death ones in the raiding game or out on their own. Both are nice because they can lead packs of sacreds. So, and then this lady fills the same role, except, she has a small chance to random water if you're trying to get a little bit of water access off one of these people, maybe for foraging. And this guy can get earth. I don't know. I tend to prefer this guy. I think the earth is a little bit better than the water, and you've got other water access. But, picking up a few of these ladies, seeing if they can maybe get a water random, maybe you get like a stealthy quickness caster or something. I don't know. Black Triads, these are your research monkeys. They also perform reasonably well in armies, as they don't get formations, which kind of sucks, at least if I remember right. But they are holy too, so they're pretty good at blessing groups of sacreds, especially in like a first or second war before if you've got an army that doesn't have a holy 3. So they can fill that role, especially good in the raiding game, doing stuff like that. On advancing cast, you've got some nasty, like I think national spells maybe, or really good generic spells. I think like, what is it? Gosh. Oh gosh. Maybe it's not showing up because of the, like vengeful vines, sleep vines, and then I think there's like a venomous death or something. I should probably turn off debug mod. Give me 1 sec. Okay, so yeah, they can also do some of your national stuff like regrowth, mend the dead. So that's a heal. That's not as good, but you've got this, which I think is like a regen, which is pretty good. You've got quick roots for quickness. So in the late game, you can slap a Ring of the False Prophet on one of these holy 2s, and they can become a holy 3 for you if you want. Although ideally you put that on a holy 3 to make it a holy 4. So you can do your holy 4 buff, which is carrion growth. And was that if they fail an MR check, so you might want to do it on like 5 times cast, then you get regen and yeah, what was this? Just like army-wide regen. So I'll be honest, I haven't really needed that yet. I'm trying to find that, like, Venomous Death. We've got Dark Slumber there, which I don't think I've ever been able to justify the cost of. Oh, is it in here? Yeah, so here's Venomous Death. So you give them like a, this is like an anti-thug thing. It does 25 armor negating poison damage with a decay effect. I guess this is better on the Dryad Hex, but I mean, there's all sorts of like little evocations you can do with nature and death. So they are useful. Just generally speaking, they're more research monkeys. For the Dryad Hag, I would consider these more like battle mages. They come with the built-in nature 2. They've got death 1, so they can all do venomous death. They're also holy 2, so they can fill that role. They do get some randoms, so you can get water and earth, or you can get death 2 or glamour 2. And you can get solid like skelly spam casters. They can all do swarm. They can do the various little evocations on advance and cast. I think maybe ephemeral blast. I forget if that's glamour too. But yeah, I mean, all of these are useful, but they are more expensive, so I'd probably reserve them more for armies rather than sitting around researching. And then you've got the Panic Apostate. This is your main mage. So these guys can grow your forts using Carrion Fortress, which is another national spell. Also, they're your big battle mages, so Death 3 ones with the Skull Staff can do Darkness and Rigor Mortis. Nature ones at Nature 4 can do all the big nature spells. What is it? Relief, Serpent's Blessing, Army of Regen, Army of Giants. Yeah, I think those are the big 4, but they can also do other stuff. The death, yeah. So you've got relief and rigor mortis covered by this one mage, which is pretty nice. They also make pretty good, if you twice born them and they die, they become a Carrion Lord, which is one of your summons. They make really pretty good thugs. They have decently high hit points, okay stats. I mean, they could be better, but it's still a pretty good thug chassis. They can do Soul Vortex, Invulnerability, Regen. You can slap an armor on them. You can do some point buffing for them. Especially the Earth randoms, I think, make good thugs due to Iron Skin and Temper Flesh. The water ones are Fell Vapors casters. And then I think the Death and Nature ones are your either like big evocation mages or your army casters. So I think all of them have a role to fill. In the deep late game, you can turn a lot of these into liches if you want. They do size down, so they become a human-sized lich, which is sad, but still, it's a lich. And it's a lich with nature and death and potentially some other stuff. So they do make decent lich chassis. And doing literally anything to get this 336 gold per year off your upkeep roster is amazing. So keep that in mind. They are not sacred. You're hiring them for a job. They should always be doing that job. If they're researching, you're probably doing it wrong. And you'll see me spend some time with them researching, and I'm definitely doing it wrong there. So keep these guys busy, keep them working, make them earn their pay. All right, so that's the living commanders. When it comes to heroes, Worthy Heroes adds a Grieving Dryad hero who is not undead, who you can turn into a lich or twiceborn, depending on what stage of the game you're in. But she comes in at Death 4, so you can kit her up to do stuff like Utterdark or Well of Misery, different stuff like that. She can break you into high death, so pretty nice pickup there. in the heroes department with worthy heroes. Otherwise, for standard heroes, you've got an Etin Mandragora. This guy's a really cool SC chassis, lots of hit points. Okay attack, really high damage, very strong. Has built-in fear. And yeah, I mean, he can bless himself, so he takes your bless. So you can kit him out and have a lot of fun. And then this guy is interesting because he's an assassin. So you can turn him into just a really nasty assassin. I think an Unseen Blade is a really good weapon for him. It'll give him +2 patience, and you can forge that with Glamour. And then the rest of his kit can maybe be, I don't know, like a Thistle Mace. So you can do, I don't know, Creeping Doom or whatever. So all sorts of stuff you can cast with him. He has Holy 3, so he's a pretty decent mage for assassinations. So I'd just keep it moving with him. You don't really get a lot of assassins. He is Berserker 5, so you got to watch out for that. So maybe add a Ring of Returning as well, unless you want him to get into melee combat. And he does have the built-in death path, so you can twice spawn him, which, and you know, is pretty good because he does have Holy 3 on him. So if he dies, I believe he'll become a Holy 3 Carrion Lord, but I haven't tested it, and heroes can sometimes be different. When it comes to the units, let's see, you've got your Carrion Commander. These guys are really useful for ferrying stuff around and leading, you know, lesser raiding parties. Solid, don't waste them. I feel like I never have enough of them. You've got your Carrion Wolf, Boar, and Horse. These are your cavalry sort of mannequins. The only thing I'll say about them is watch out for the low MR. So late game armies may or may not want to include them. And note that they all have different movement speeds. For the Carrion Bear, also low MR, but is a more elite troop. So in the late game, maybe keep this guy to the raiding game as well, where maybe he has a better chance of thriving as, you know, maybe a little bit more of an elite killer or something. Does a lot of damage, has more hit points, stuff like that. Carrion Beast, you do not free spawn these, but you can get them by hitting large enemies with carrion bows. I got some of these by hitting, I guess I shouldn't spoil it, but by hitting a certain unit, I was able to get some of these in my game. They're nice because they have 2 attacks, aside from the Sleep Lions, and a lot of hit points. Carrion Behemoth has many more Sleep Vine hits, but is more known for being your trampler. Probably our primary way of getting through a freaking gate. It can be really difficult for Asphodel to take forts in the early game. So you might want to save these guys up for a big battering ram to get through a gate, because otherwise you'll just sit outside the gate getting banished and shot, and it's a really bad time. Minotaur Mannequin. These are more elite undead. They've got 2 attacks. They've got good hit points. They've also got good MR. These you can put in your late game armies. Carrion Behemoth also has low MR. Keep it out of your late game armies. If they get stolen, they will wreck your whole army and destroy your Doom stack. I've seen it happen twice now, in some ways. They played a large contributing factor, them getting stolen. Okay, and then we've got the Sagittarian Carcass. This is the first of 2 undead sacreds. It's got a Carrion Bow, which can apply a Carrion Seed, which means when a unit dies, it'll turn into a mannequin of some kind. So it's really cool in that way. So it can give you more troops. Otherwise, it really doesn't do a heck of a lot. It's got very low protection, so they can get counter shot pretty easily. They're going to be the only archers in your army, probably. So they can be hard to keep alive. But, you know, they're cool. And maybe if you take some fun weapon bless, you can do stuff with this. But yeah, I would say they're the weaker of the two undead sacreds. You've got your mannequin. This is your standard troop. They've got decent MR actually, so you can take them in late game armies. You do want to anti-magic them. Mandragora is better for late game armies. Twice as many sleep finds, has 14 MR. Satyr mannequin, also 14 MR, better for armies. And this is primarily from a not getting stolen perspective. It's not going to necessarily protect you from a firestorm perspective. All these units except the two sacreds, where you should be putting fire resistance on your bless, will burn up in firestorm in the late game. So if you think you're going to fight an army that's going to do a firestorm trap, you got to beware or have some sort of plan to deal with it. And then harpy mannequins. I like these for bodyguards because they have 3 combat speed. They're not going anywhere fast. They can also be good for catching attack rear or flyers because of their low combat speed. They've also got decent MR and 2 sleep finds. And then we've got the Carrion Fury. This is your primary killing power aside from Black Centaurs. They are amazing. Weapon blesses will apply to their sleep finds. So my particular build is going to have unholy weapons, which will proc for each one of these 3 attacks on the sleep finds. Then you've got the Skull Club, which has Dark Slumber, and Dark Slumber an effect on damage, and they're likely to damage because they do 32 fucking damage. And that's before they berserk, at which point they do 37, and that's before accounting for the bless or any army buffs you put. So if they hit, they'll probably do damage, in which case they apply 20 AN fatigue damage as well, and that's in addition to all their sleep finds. And then they've got a 19 damage gore as well, which is also pretty neat. So extremely killy, very tough at 34 hit points. You can stick a bless on them, put army buffs, point buff them. They are truly nasty for enemies to deal with. Alright, so that's the free spawn. And then you've got 3 summons you can get. Or you can get them by twice boarding the applicable mage. And it should be obvious which one converts to which. Alright, the Carrion Lord is a Carrion Vine, which applies a Carrion Seed effect, which is pretty cool. You can also kit them out as SCs. They only come with the Holy 3 if you summon them. If you twice spawn a Carrion Lord, because they're not Holy 3, they're not going to come with the Holy 3 built in, if that makes sense. So do be aware that the paths will carry over to the second form. But these guys are great for blessing your armies. If you profit 1 early in the game, then you can get a Holy 4 to do that stuff. Later on, you can put Rings of the False Prophet on them to make them a Holy 4. And then they do all the same stuff that Panics do, except now they're undead. So, and they also make a pretty good SC chassis. I will say, if you want to solo raid with them, you need to be very careful because Ravenous Swarm will delete them pretty quickly. Unless you do like Body Ethereal and other stuff. There's a few things that can slow down Ravenous Swarm. And where maybe your regen can try to like even it out. But I don't think that's a great place to put your super combatant, just trying to even stuff out. Okay. And then Carrion Lady. If these, I probably wouldn't summon. This is kind of bad, just the 2 magic paths. If you twice spawn a Dryad Hag, then you get 5 to 6 paths and Holy 2. There's a way better way to get these ladies for the Carrion ladies. And then the Carrion Centaur, you will occasionally free spawn these. So I like just getting a bunch early in the game. maybe through the end of a first war, I'll be picking these up, and then maybe start tapering that back, and tapering back maybe like the fort growing and the maybe even some of the carrion lord stuff to focus on maybe getting certain global control, whatnot. But over a full game, you'll get a lot of these guys. Okay. But yeah, I'd say summoning these is fine in the early game. And then, you know, the only thing I'll say about these guys is maybe if you're summoning them, maybe keep it to like one per army. You can probably twice born panics to get like SC chassis. I don't know that you need Holy 3 on an SC chassis. So if you're looking to limit it, you could do that, or you could get maybe like 2 per army just so you have an extra, stuff like that. But if you're looking to like balance things out and not overdo it. Okay. So yeah, and you want to take very high growth so that you turn more things into forests so you can get your cheaper temples, cheaper labs. And you do want a lot of temples because your temples produce nature gems, and that's up until your Dom strength. So if you have like 8 Dom strength, then you could get up to up to 8 free nature gems from temples. I believe I did that right. So it does make sense that you want to spam a lot of temples and convert a lot of things to forests. It's a little bit of a virtuous cycle. Although increasing your Dom strength later on can be very gold intensive. So maybe keep it within reason. And then, yeah, your labs are also cheaper in forests. If I can help it, I never build a primitive fort. Uh, like if you have to on a throne, go for it. Or you could just station an army there. You should have a lot more troops than everyone else. So you can stick an army on a throne and maybe just try to defend it, but you do got to be careful of the game state and throne rushes. All right. So I think that's a much faster overview. I suppose we can cover like early, mid, and late game, and then we can call it for this like abridged version. For early game, I would have a very predatory mindset because you're going to have probably more troops than the other person. Your sacreds are going to be probably stronger than the other person's, within reason for certain matchups, but Carrion Furies are extremely strong. Black Centaur can be extremely killy. I do think you should take a reasonably strong Bless. Because, you've got pop kill. Be very careful with Black Centaur. Don't waste them. Because later in the game, when your capital gets down to 1% pop, you're only going to be able to recruit 1 per turn. So any that you lose, even in expansion or even later in the game, is in some ways it's going to be a Black Centaur you never get back. So I would probably peg the total number of Black Centaur that you can get, depending on how much Dominion you take at, if you take like 7 or 8 Dominion, maybe you can get like 200 Black Centaur in a game. Or maybe like 180. Depends how long the game goes as well. So if you lose a stack of Black Centaur, you're not going to be able to casually replace it. So be careful with them. That said, you do need to be aggressive. Go win your first war. And you do want to win it reasonably quickly, because you want to be able to keep recruiting your mages. And especially these Black Dryads. Because you can grow your forts, you can get more forts out before other people build forts. Within some reason, like, probably can't compete with like a 4,000 luck event for someone where they just plop down 4 forts. But you can come up with new forts very quickly. And those new forts are likely going to produce a lot of black dryads for research. Asphodel can indeed be a game leader in research or compete for it. But to do that, you do have to take over someone's territory and then delay putting your dominion in it. But if you do successfully do that, you can do extremely well in research. And you have all the tools you need to. You have tons of chaff to siege down forts and caps. You have elite killers like Black Centaur and Carrion Furies. And even Carrion Behemoths to try and punch through a gate. So you've got a lot of great tools. You've got harpies. So to maybe jump in the bag, try to snipe a mage or two. You've got tools. Sagittarian carcasses can lob arrows over. But yeah, go get that first war, win it, use all that gold to get your black dryads, and compete really strongly in research. If you compete well in the research, then you'll be able to get to the mid game pretty quickly. And the mid game is very important because you want to have as long of a window as possible with Rigor Mortis and Foul Vapors and potentially Serpent's Blessing, Darkness, all of those kind of early but strong mid-game spells before other people get their counters online. And the first major counter that's going to come online is Firestorm. Firestorm will delete everything except your sacreds. It might force you to doomstack into people. And once you're forced to doomstack into people, if they kill your main army, then you're screwed. They'll just invade the rest of you. So you want to make that window work really hard and take a lot of good land and scale really hard, but also somehow be diplomatically conscious so you don't get limited too much as well or get coalitioned. But if you're doing extremely well, you might be able to effectively fight a coalition as well. And people might not necessarily want to fight you because the spoils for killing you aren't going to be very good. So that's kind of how the early game leads into the mid game. When Firestorm comes out, you do need to be careful up until the point, assuming you've taken at least 5 fire resist on your bless, then you can start taking fights again when you hit 8, because you can do the fins, and that'll bring you up to 10, and that should at least protect your sacreds so that you can do that doomstack fight. If you take 10 fire res on your blast, you can probably fight through that kind of middle period between Firestorm and 8s. And if your research is extremely good, you might get to the 8s before somebody else gets to Firestorm and eliminate that window that way as well. Heading into the late game, which are the 8s, you do have to be on the lookout for Master and Slave. I've seen it a couple of times now. Armies get stolen. In particular, Carrion Behemoths go absolutely ham when stolen because they are inanimate. The sleep vines don't work on them. They trample like crazy through the mannequins. The mannequins have a hard time effectively killing them. It's a really bad time. So be careful about your army composition. We talked about the importance of MR. And then also be careful of what resists you have. You don't want to throw a ton of mannequins into an army, get Firestorm, and then HP route your sacreds, even if they've got fire resist. So you want to be conscious of your army compositions where you're stationing things so you don't get forced into awkward fights or just giving units away. And then also so those are, I think, my 2 biggest fears are Master and Slave and Firestorm. You can build your bless a bit around Firestorm. Master and Slave, I think, is more difficult. You can do a fast casting hat for anti-magic, and that can be really good, but it can be hard to break into Astral on Asphodel. Something else you have to watch out for is Flames from the Sky. not against building a fair number of domes, or maybe scattering your stuff into multiple forts so that you don't get nuked from above. And in the late game, you do have some power plays you can make. There's Utterdark, Enchanted Forests for globals. There's Ghost Riders for a remote raid. There's Lichcraft for your panics. And Awakened Forests for summoning an army, especially good on defense. And I mean, there's some other kind of like boutique spells as well, like Army of Rats. I mean, there's always like in the Howls up in the mid game, but yeah. So there's a fair number of level 9s. Celestial Rainbow, if you somehow had a god for that, that could be pretty good. That said, I do think the nation, at least from what I've seen so far, it seems to play really well on a Rainbow Bless. But I'm sure there's other really effective blesses as well. The particular bless I'm going to take, though, is a Rainbow Bless. And it was inspired by seeing how Slock played when I was doing a Hydra with Demosthenes on Shinyama. I was really impressed with how the Asphodel played. And then also had a conversation, I think, I forget when, although I bring it up in the longer national overview, but had a conversation last year with Zan where we were talking about weapon blesses. He wanted to really take unholy weapons on something. We were chatting about what nations it might be good on. Asphodel came up and we tested it a bit, and it does work on sleep finds. I think I saw it in the general chat this year for vampiric weapons, because that bless just got buffed recently. And so I've been wanting to do unholy weapons for quite some time on the nation. Tried fitting a second weapon bless, but wasn't able to get that, plus all the other stuff I wanted. And so I decided on a greedy imprisoned incarnate, where early on we would rely on kind of like a stats bless for the Black Centaur. And then we paid for the incarnate by going imprisoned a little bit. And the unholy weapons would wake up, maybe in time for a second war. And that could be extremely good for maybe warding off a coalition. In particular, I was looking at the matchup with Nidavellir, because Nidbetheds have multiple Scar Souls, and so Unholy Weapons proccing on Sleep Vines does incredible amounts of damage, especially on Carrion Furies, because then it essentially gives them, because they've got 5 attacks base, because they've got 3 Sleep Vine attacks, it essentially turns these 5 attacks into 10 attacks, and you've got 2 of these guys per tile. And so that gives you 20 attacks per tile from 2 Carrion Furies. So, which can be absolutely brutal. And so even though Nidbetheds will trade into and kill Carrion Furies will absolutely kill most Nidbethed blesses. So, all right. So I think that's it. I'll go ahead and stop it here. I was hoping to stop it at around 30 minutes, but I thought the early, mid, and late game talk would be useful. I hope you guys enjoyed this. More like a bridged one. And I'll also post the longer one. Anyways, thanks. Have a good one. Bye.